Carla, what would be your signature achievement you're looking for in the next 100 days?
Right. Well, certainly it's promises made, promises kept. I'm enjoying the 101st day of the golden age of America. And what I hope to see President Trump do is
Have you ever watched a political debate that spirals so fast, so aggressively, that you genuinely have to pause the video just to recalibrate your thoughts? One of those moments where the temperature in the room jumps before anyone fully realizes what just happened? Because that's exactly the kind of exchange we're dealing with here. This isn't a calm panel discussion or a scripted back and forth. This is raw, unscripted political combat unfolding in real time. Today, we're breaking down a truly explosive encounter between journalist Mehdi Hassan of Zeteo and Carla Sands, former U.S. ambassador to Denmark. On paper, it looks like a standard cable news debate. In reality, it quickly mutates into one of the most confrontational and uncomfortable exchanges you'll see on mainstream television this year. What starts as surface-level disagreement rapidly transforms into a relentless clash of facts, framing, and political accountability. The shift in energy is almost immediate. One moment, it's diplomatic smiles and talking points. The next, the gloves are off. Arguments sharpen, interruptions stack up, and the tone slides from polite tension into a full-scale political showdown. You can actually feel the control of the conversation slipping minute by minute, as both sides realize this is no longer business as usual. And that's what makes this exchange so fascinating. It's not just about who's right or wrong. It's about power, narrative control, and what happens when rehearsed messaging collides with direct, uncompromising questioning. This is the kind of moment cable news both thrives on and quietly dreads. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because what follows isn't just loud television. It's a revealing snapshot of how modern political debates unravel when pressure is applied, and why moments like this resonate far beyond the studio. Now let's get into it.
Carla, what would be your signature achievement you're looking for in the next 100 days?
Right. Well, certainly it's promises made, promises kept. I'm enjoying the 101st day of the golden age of America. And what I hope to see President Trump do is he's right now in the White House, surrounded by some of the top CEOs in the world, and they're talking about the investments that they're bringing to the United States, creating jobs. President Trump has already brought over 300,000 new jobs.
Carla, President Trump has already brought a first quarter of negative economic growth, we learned today.
President Biden was losing 6,000 jobs a month. President Trump has already added 9,000 new manufacturing jobs.
Mehdi?
Yeah, I don't know what the golden age of America looks like, but it surely doesn't look like a 101st day in which we have a negative quarter of growth for the first time since the start of 2022. Let's not forget, at the end of 2024, Donald Trump inherited an economy where the final quarter of growth was 2.4% annualized. Today, we discover the first quarter of 2025 is minus 0.3%. A majority of Americans, including 51% of Republicans, say they believe Donald Trump's policies could cause a recession this year. So not sure people voted for a recession or for more inflation from tariffs or for the decimation of their 401ks, the worst stock market 100-day performance since Richard Nixon. He has kind of taken an economy which that left-wing rag, The Economist magazine, called the envy of the world, and he's trashing it. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure it's ideology, whether it's grievance. He's obsessed with these tariffs, even though every serious economist in the United States and across the world is telling him stop. Some of his own advisors are trying to tell him to stop, but he's not listening. So if this is what the golden age looks like, God help us when we enter the dark ages of the Trump era.
Carla, you can't argue with the numbers, GDP figures today.
Well, I can. Actually, I can argue with the numbers. So he inherited Joe Biden's numbers. It was an inflated economy from pumping taxpayer money. This was government spending, propping up the U.S. economy and creating unsustainable debt. The trillions of dollars of debt President Trump has promised to bring us a
Donald
Trump
added more to the debt in his first term than Joe Biden did in his term. Actually,
he had COVID hit, so that's a tilt. That's not fair. COVID hit President Trump's best economy in the history of our country in 2019. Now he's bringing that economy back. You're speaking over me. I didn't do that to you. It's not really so polite.
Yeah, let's be polite on the 101st day.
Absolutely.
Carla, I mean,
you work for
okay,
Donald
let's
Trump.
say there's another quarter of negative economic growth and we speak in 3 months' time. Is that okay? Is that a price worth paying for what Donald Trump wants to do to the economy?
So what President Trump is doing is, and let's just remind all your viewers, the press in the US covers President Trump 96% negative. It's a miracle he has any positive rating in the polls. But in the UK and EU, it's even more negative. So I'm sorry that your media brainwashes you, but the fact is President Trump is doing the hard work of righting the American economy, reindustrializing our nation. We were slipping into a service economy, and you cannot be a great power if you don't make things. You have to manufacture things. You have to make steel and aluminum. You have to be able to make your own ships, and you have to have your own rare earth minerals and prescription precursors.
Okay, let me ask Mehdi if he's been. Carla, let me ask Mehdi if he's been doing any brainwashing lately.
Well, first of all, the manufacturing boom has been, the manufacturing boom was happening on Biden's watch, as all the numbers showed. But in terms of, it's funny to talk about brainwashing when the entire MAGA message is Donald Trump and Fox brainwashing people into believing insane things like the last election was stolen.
You can really see an interesting pattern here that's worth examining, because it shows up across the political spectrum in different ways. Right now, many Trump supporters are highlighting stock market gains as evidence of economic strength and renewed confidence. When the market hits new highs, it's framed as validation that policies are working and the economy is heading in the right direction. Here's what makes this fascinating from a media analysis perspective. During Biden's presidency, from 2020 through 2024, the stock market also broke records multiple times. There were numerous all-time highs, strong corporate earnings, and similarly optimistic financial headlines. Yet the interpretation of those same metrics was completely different depending on who was doing the interpreting. This pattern isn't unique to one political side. It's actually a universal feature of political commentary. Economic indicators get emphasized when they support your preferred narrative and downplayed when they don't. Democrats did this with certain metrics under Biden. Republicans do it with different metrics under Trump. The underlying human tendency is the same. We all pay more attention to information that confirms what we already believe. What's particularly interesting is the disconnect between stock market performance and everyday economic experience. Whether the Dow Jones hits a record doesn't immediately change someone's rent payment, grocery bill, or monthly expenses. Yet stock market numbers become major talking points in political messaging because they're simple, visible, and easy to communicate. This is really about how different groups frame economic success. For some, it's stock market performance. For others, it's wage growth, unemployment rates, or inflation. For still others, it's how they personally feel about their financial situation. Each metric tells part of the story, but which ones get emphasized depends heavily on which ones currently support your broader political argument. The challenge for anyone trying to understand the actual economy is separating signal from noise, figuring out which metrics genuinely matter for everyday people versus which ones just make for compelling political messaging. So the question becomes, how do we look at economic data in a way that's consistent regardless of who's in office? And how do we recognize when we're doing the same selective interpretation we criticize in others?
Last night on American television, on ABC News, Donald Trump tried to claim that a photoshopped image of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man from Maryland, the El Salvadoran who had caught in the US, said could not be sent back to El Salvador. But he defied the court, the Trump administration, sent him illegally back to a torture camp in El Salvador. And Donald Trump went on live TV and 7 times, Adam, 7 times, he said that MS-13 was written on his knuckles, because this was the digitally photoshopped image that Trump was given by his aides and that they put out to right-wing media. It's a photoshopped image. Trump 7 times claimed to the audience that those numbers were really there on his hands. That is the level of delusion and gaslighting and dishonesty in this White House. I mean, every president lies. George Bush lied, Joe Biden lied, or Barack Obama lied. But no one lies like Trump. To take an image that's fake, that's photoshopped, that's demonstrably untrue, and repeat 7 times on national television. No, he had the letters MS-13. Is he mentally competent? We talked about Joe Biden's competence. Is Donald Trump mentally competent? Recently, he told Time magazine, Adam, that he won at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 against Trump and said you must facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They are violating the Supreme Court. They are violating lower courts. That is what they're doing in this 100 days.
Okay, Carla, is your man relying on a doctored image and falling for fake news with that picture?
Adam, I don't want to waste the time of your viewers talking about an inconsequential known gang member. I want to talk about how President Trump has brought $5 trillion of new investment into the United States, how we're making America healthy again by taking the dyes out of the food and finding actually the cause of autism, a heartbreak for so many American families. They're losing their children. And also making America safer, taking the DOD, which was going woke and very like an indoctrination center, and creating again that lethal fighting force focused on the mission of
what was
keeping
happening
the
at the
United States
DOD's
safe.
Department of Defense? What was happening in the military caused by woke, as you put it, that was so bad, Carla?
Yeah, so the U.S., the DOD under the radical leftists controlling Joe Biden, who your media never talked about as mental incompetence, and everyone saw it even in 2019.
Mental incompetence, you won't even defend.
Mehdi, let Carla finish and I'll come back to you.
If I may, so we saw the Pentagon refocus on the security of the United States instead of doing things like censoring Americans. How about what USAID was doing, destabilizing the world and funding terrorism from U.S. taxpayer dollars? It's unconscionable.
Okay, let's let Mehdi respond to some of the things that you were
Democrats.
saying there.
Sure.
Yeah, you said a lot there. I mean, look, what she said about USAID is false. Elon Musk and Doge are super unpopular, have failed.
We love
she
Doge.
talks about not one.
And this is exactly why the exchange heats up so quickly. It taps into one of the most familiar fault lines in modern politics, the gap between big promises and real-world results. This isn't a side issue. It's the pressure point that turns a normal debate into a confrontation. Take the Department of Government Efficiency. It was launched with huge expectations, framed as a bold move to streamline government and cut waste. The messaging was confident, almost transformational. But once implementation began, reality proved far messier. Progress has been slow, obstacles have surfaced, and so far the results haven't matched the original hype. That's where the divide appears. Supporters argue it's too early to judge, that structural reform takes time. Critics see the delay itself as proof the idea was oversold from the start. And depending on what you expect from government, either argument can sound convincing. The real tension comes from one simple question. How long do we wait before results actually matter? The debate then shifts to a disputed image, and again, the framing tells the story. The president insists it's authentic. Mehdi raises concerns about accuracy and credibility in official communication. Carla, meanwhile, redirects the focus to broader context. They're not just disagreeing, they're prioritizing entirely different standards for leadership. That same pattern repeats with the issue of pardons. Over 1,000 people receive clemency, including individuals convicted of assaulting law enforcement during January 6th. Mehdi frames this as a clear contradiction to claims of supporting police. Carla responds by expanding the lens, pointing to criminal justice context and political prosecutions. Both think they're answering the question. They're just asking different ones. Foreign policy follows the same script. Early promises of a rapid resolution in Ukraine are contrasted with months of ongoing conflict. Supporters argue diplomacy takes time. Critics point to an unfulfilled timeline. Once again, the disagreement isn't just about facts, but about how progress should be measured. And that's the bigger takeaway from this exchange. We're not only arguing over policies, we're arguing over what counts as success, which outcomes matter, and whether we apply those standards consistently, regardless of who's in charge.